So this time I'll be taking a look at the box set of the Fantastic Four. Now this set actually had two different versions. There was one that came plain, and one that had a clear variant of the Invisible Woman and a red clear variant of the Human Torch. Both of them were made to kind of resemble the Mike Wieringo look of the characters in the comics at the time. And so that's why you have these more kind of animated type heads. And they all had used bodies of the figures released before, The Thing and Human Torch, from Series 2, I think it's Series 5, Mr. Fantastic, and the Doctor Doom was the exact same mold except for underneath the mask, which I'll show later. There were 3 exclusive figures in this pack. The major one being the Invisible Woman, which up to this point had not been made. Now she was, of course, got a couple of movie figures and was part of the recent 2-packs at Toys R Us, but this is her first Toy Biz Marvel Legends figure. Also in this set was Franklin Richards, you can see here in his little 4.5 shirt, and Herbie the robot. So let's get into each of the figures. So I guess we'll start with Mr. Fantastic. And all the figures came with a base. Each member of the Fantastic Four came with a Fantastic Four base with 2 peg holes, or 2 pegs rather. And Doom came with a similar base with just a D, but unfortunately I can't find that base right now. Mr. Fantastic here is the exact same figure as body-wise as the Series 5 release, recolored to the John Byrne sort of white costume, gloves and boots and neck, and they've given him the lab coat, and they've given him a lab coat, which is kind of cool. And you can see the sculpt here is trying to carry off the Mike Wieringo look of the character. It's alright. All his joints are super loose. Everything. His feet, legs, arms, everything is very super loose. I think it's because of the reuse of the mold. I really kind of dislike this figure, and he doesn't really stand on his own because of the really super loose ankles. So moving on to Johnny Storm, or the Human Torch. As you can see, that what I liked about this is that he's in this almost fully flamed up form, but not quite. And you can tell that it reuses everything from the first Torch except for the head. Out of all the figures in the line, this guy has the tightest joints, but still, even then, he's quite loose. And so while he is probably has the tightest joints out of all the figures, his joints are still loose. And I guess that's, again, a problem because of reusing the mold. You see the glowing effect in his mouth and his eyes. I don't particularly like the look in his mouth, but the eyes are neat. Yeah, so moving on. We'll take a look at the Thing next. And you can obviously tell the major difference is the head sculpt here, where you have the exposed teeth, and again it's more along the lines of Wieringo. That's the best side-by-side comparison I can get there. And I like the exposed teeth and stuff, but I do tend to lean towards this sculpt too. You can tell the coloring is different too. It's a much darker orange, and he's got the white belt here on his trousers. Also, one other thing is that you can see that this is actually based on the later production Thing, which I guess they got problems because the wires came out poking out of the fingers on the wireframe fingers, so they switched to a hard plastic fingers on the hands here. So you have all the joints, all the fingers here are individually jointed, as well as the thumb. I'd much rather they had sculpted whole fists instead of doing that. So let's move on. Now I'm briefly going to show the Invisible Woman. Since it's the only Invisible Woman I have, I think she merits her own entry, her own video. So I'm just going to briefly show her and her hip thing, which I liked. And again, I'll expand upon this in her own video. So moving on to the Doctor Doom, which is the same exact sculpt as far as you can tell, indistinguishable from the Series 2 Doctor Doom. And with one exception, if you remove his cloak and you can remove his mask, you can see the face is a little bit different and much more along the Wieringo styling than the other one. So we'll just put that back on, and we'll put that back in there. One thing I forgot to mention just before we move along is they have a little accessory here for Mr. Fantastic, and it's Mr. Fantastic curled up into a ball. Now, Mr. Fantastic really can't make himself a fully realized ball, but I think they do capture it. They do try and capture him rolling himself up into a ball-like shape. Of course, you can tell that he's got the number 4 on there from his uniform, and if we roll around, he's got a little face on there. It's just kind of funny, but neat little thing. And we'll get on to Herbie. Herbie the robot, which stands for Humanoid Experimental Robot, B-Type Integrated Electronics. And Herbie has 1 point of articulation, his head, and that's it. Of course, Herbie was built to track, I believe, Galactus or something, or one of Galactus's heralds. But it was hijacked by the evil Dr. Sun, possessed the body and plotted to destroy the Fantastic Four. Fortunately, Herbie's programming may regain control, and before Dr. Sun could download himself into, I think it was the computers in the Baxter building, Herbie ran into the computer bank, destroying both himself and the Dr. Sun intelligence, thus saving the Fantastic Four and carrying out his programming. Now, there have been other Herbies later on and other robot companions to the Fantastic Four, but of course, most people will recognize Herbie from the 1979 cartoon, and there's a big myth, urban legend about Herbie, is that they replaced the Fantastic Four with Herbie because they didn't want kids, or not Marvel, but the cartoon makers didn't want kids to set themselves on fire imitating the Human Torch, which is ridiculous and totally not true. It just turns out that the Human Torch was tied up in trying to get his own solo series, and they couldn't finagle out a deal where it would also be on the Fantastic Four at the same time. Herbie first appears in Fantastic Four number 209 in 1979 after appearing on the television show. Next we have the Franklin Richards, the son of Reed and Sue, and he first appears in the Fantastic Four annual number 6 in 1968. Of course, he's just a baby, but then he kind of quickly grew up, and probably around 8 or 9 now. And who knows with comic book time? Sometimes he's written older, sometimes he's written younger. I'm not really going to get into his backstory. There's a lot of it. I mean, he's a super powerful mutant, and he's had tons of future and alternate selves, and it created alternate worlds and alternate sisters that have become real sisters, and he's got a lot of rich backstory, and so can't really fit it into this video. So we'll just go over the articulation. His head goes side to side, not really up and down. His arms go all the way around and in and out. We've got a waist articulation. His legs go forward and back and out to the side. He is kind of given this really funny, surprised look with his eyeballs all exposed. And again, the theme of this whole set is the Wieringo kind of styled Fantastic Four, and he really does kind of capture that. The only thing I could do to improve this figure was to maybe have had him swivel right here at where the bare arms meet the sleeves of his shirt. For what he is, he's pretty cool, and just a nice little addition to this set. So there we are with all the family assembled. Kind of disappointed. None of the figures have the articulation, or the articulation isn't as good as their first molds were, or their first figures were. I do like the inclusion of both Herbie and the Franklin figures. Also, I didn't have a Doom until I bought this set, so I like the fact that Doom came with them as well. There was a shortened version of this set with just the main Fantastic Four, and using the exact same head sculpts and body sculpts, but repainted to look like the Heroes Reborn uniforms. Stay tuned to get the full story on Sue Storm, Invisible Woman. Stay tuned for that, and until then, I'll see you.